द वे फॉरवर्ड इज ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਹੋਸਟ ਹਰਜੋਤ ਸਿੰਘ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਹਫਤੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਹਾ, ਨਵੰਬਰ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਨਵੰਬਰ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੈਗਾ ਇਸ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ, ਇਸ ਸਟੇਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੋਕਲ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਦਾ। ਇਹ ਲੋਕਲ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹਨ ਔਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲੋਕਲ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟਸ ਹਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਰੂਬਰੂ ਕਰਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਜਾਣ ਸਕੋ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣ ਸਕੋ। ਅੱਜ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਹਨ ਸਫਕ ਕਾਉਂਟੀ ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ 18 ਦੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਈਵ ਮੈਲਜ਼ਰ ਕਰੀਫ। Actually, Dr. Eve Meltzer Krief. Dr. Meltzer Krief, you're very, very welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. I know you personally. I'll take the liberty of calling you Eve. Eve, thank you so much for taking our time today. I know it's a very busy season with the campaign. Eve, we have a growing South Asian community in the Suffolk County. That's most of our viewership, and I would like you to take this opportunity to introduce yourself to the South Asian community.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me again. My name is Dr. Eve Meltzer Krief. I'm a pediatrician. I've been a pediatrician here in Huntington for the past 25 years, and I live in Centerport with my husband, and we have a 20-year-old daughter, a 15-year-old son. And I love my job. I love being a pediatrician. I think I'm really blessed to enjoy what I do for a living. I've gotten very involved in advocacy work at the legislative level over the better part of the last decade. And I've just found a lot of fulfillment advocating for children at the legislative level, whether we're talking about the county, the state, or the federal level on behalf of children. I got more engaged in politics over the last couple of election cycles, and what I found was that many of the issues that I was getting concerned about that were happening broadly at a national level really all impacted children and their health and well-being, whether we were talking about affordable access to health care, whether we were talking about gun safety and the rise of gun violence and guns being the number one killer of our children in this country, whether we were talking about access to childcare. All the issues that we get concerned about as a country really just do impact our children locally. I did a lot of work in New York State. I joined my American Academy of Pediatrics and soon became their legislative chair, and worked for the gun safety legislation that passed here in New York State. Worked to ban the sale of flavored vaping products to our young children. Still an issue that needs better enforcement. Just came to understand that there's lots of issues that take place at every level of government that really impact our health and well-being. And I decided to run so that I could be a voice for health and well-being and for children and families in Suffolk County.
Yeah, we appreciate your service, and I know that you are a friend of the South Asian community. We know about your efforts in advocacy for Eid holiday, which you did at the school. You are associated with the anti-bias task force. You have been involved with campaigns saying hate has no room in Huntington.
Yeah.
Is that right? I see you as a friend of all minorities, all communities that feel somewhat disenfranchised in this society right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you a bit of the history of why I feel so passionately about that issue. We're Jewish, my family. My mother grew up in France during the Holocaust, and when she was 5 years old, her parents sent her to the countryside to hide, and she never saw both of her parents or her two older sisters again, and she was orphaned, at the age of 5. So I always carried that story with me. She always taught us as children that it could happen again. She taught us to never be silent in the face of injustice, and that silence is complicity. And I always kind of carried that inside me. And when things started happening across this country that I found really troubling is we saw the rise in hate across the country over the last 6 or 7 years. I found that deeply disturbing. Whether we were talking about the Muslim ban that they tried to institute during the administration after 2016. We're talking about the rise of anti-Asian hate. across the country, the rise in anti-Semitism that's at record levels right now. Um, and I think that, we just need to be a voice and be there for each other, and to stand up against the hate. I formed an organization locally called Long Island Inclusive Communities Against Hate. I formed that after Charlottesville, because after Charlottesville, just the sight of these men carrying torches, shouting, "Jews will not replace us," just chilled me into my core. I actually felt, I usually handle things pretty well, but I felt chest tightness, and I just, for days, it was just very, very disturbing. And so that's what prompted me to form that group that was aimed at bringing together um, people from both elected officials from both political parties, concerned community members, clergy, educators, people with powerful voices in the community, to raise their voices against hate should we see it rear its head in our communities. Just to sort of have them on the ready. And that led me to be appointed to the Town of Huntington Anti-Bias Task Force. And, there I tried to sort of revamp the work that we did there. I revitalized it, and I led that effort to, I don't know if any of you have seen the lawn signs that we have in Huntington, the Hate Has No Home in Huntington lawn signs. And we also had a project, the Hate Has No Business in Huntington graphic that we've had placed in Huntington businesses and businesses in Northport. And I led a group of diverse group of youth, Jewish, Muslim, Asian, Black, Hispanic, like kids from all different ethnicities, religions, cultures, to distribute those signs at businesses throughout the town. And I've just felt just a need to stand up when others feel attacked. After the mosque was attacked, we had a mosque attacked out east, and we had the attack on the mosque in New Zealand. But on both those events, I brought members of my synagogue. The children made cards for we went over to Masjid Noor Mosque, which is in Huntington, and we brought a basket. It was a Jewish holiday of Purim, that you're supposed to bring fruits and cookies and treats to your neighbors. So we brought baskets to Masjid Noor Mosque after the New Zealand bombing, and or the shooting there rather. And one of the mothers came up to me and had said to me that it meant so much for her that we'd come, because she had been afraid to bring her children to the mosque. And that was so upsetting, right? Because this is America, right? And no one should be afraid to be who they are in this country. And so, I was glad that our presence there did mean so much to her. And I organized a rally protesting the rise in anti-Asian hate. We had that rally in Huntington Village a couple of years ago, and again, I had Asian community members come up to me and thank me and say that they had been afraid to, walk on the streets in the town for fear of some being the target of anti-Asian hate. So, that's not good, right? We can't tolerate that level of hate in these kind of incidents where we live, and we have to stand up against it, and we have to make everybody understand that the hate does have no home in our town, in our country, and we all have to be voices against that.
Eve, the biggest concern people have is on the island is water quality. With increasing levels of nitrogen, we are all concerned. We understand that Albany has been trying to take some measures. There was some funding coming from the federal government as well, but there's a lot of politics being played locally, which is depriving us of those benefits. Can you please talk a little about the state of water protection on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, as a pediatrician, that really concerns me, because, children are much more sensitive because they're developing, to the quality of our air, the quality of our water. So this is an issue that's of deep concern to me. So the quality of our water right now in our surrounding waterways and bays here in Huntington and across most of Suffolk, but particularly on the Sound, is at the poorest quality it has ever been. It's at historically poor quality levels. The reason for that being our cesspools and our septic systems that most of us have locally. And they're outdated, and they're leaking nitrogen and bacteria into the water. The nitrogen in the water triggers algae blooms, and algae can be toxic, and it sucks up the oxygen out of the water and kills the fish and the plant life. So you've got this sort of toxic soup of water that's around us. And That's why you've seen that the beaches were closed more and more this summer. There was a historic number of beaches closed, and that's been happening more and more every year. And with more and more storms and more runoff from our septic systems, that's just going to keep happening more frequently. And ultimately, we won't be able to go into the water. And that's just not sustainable as a county. Who's going to want to move here if we can't go in the water? So it's obviously a very urgent issue that we really need to address. Scientists have known it for a long time, and they've been working on a plan for the better part of a decade to clean our water so we can feel safe about going inside it, so we can feel safe about our children going inside the water. And it's a national issue as well. Wherever you see cesspool infrastructure, you have similar issues, such that the federal government was actually going to invest billions of dollars in potential grant funding for us to access the county to update our septic systems and cesspools, and to also fund sewer projects throughout the county wherever appropriate. They were going to give households like $25,000 to put in clean water filtering systems. And this year, they hadn't agreed to it before, but this year, the state was actually going to match any funds that we were able to raise as a county to establish a water quality fund, which will go toward this work and allow us to access all these grants that are now available. So there was supposed to be a referendum on the ballot in November that was going to propose a 0.125% sales tax increase to the voters, which is essentially an extra 12 cents for every $100 purchase. So not too terribly significant. Those kind of measures, when it comes to our water quality, typically pass in a bipartisan way because it's our water, right? Everybody cares about our water. I went to a number of forums about this issue, being as concerned as I was, and you saw bipartisan support at these forums, right? You had our town supervisor, who's a Republican. You had state legislators from both parties. Everybody was on board with this. And the whole push of these forums I went to was to get the voters to vote yes for the referendum, because they understand that this is a very pressing issue that we must deal with. And here we have ourselves a very unique and time-sensitive opportunity to address this problem affordably, right? So it's kind of a no-brainer, right? And again, this plan was a long time in the works. All the scientists, environmentalists worked on this project, and this has their support, and everyone was on board. And it seemed like it was going to happen. And then out of nowhere, at the 11th hour, the county legislature, who are Republicans, they control it right now, they decided not to put this referendum on the ballot in November, apparently because they did some polling that showed them that if this issue was on the ballot, it would bring too many environmentalists or Democrats to the polls who might not necessarily vote for them at the same time, and that they might lose seats. So I get that they want to win, they're politicians, but not at the expense of our water quality, right? This is our water. This is what sustains us. This is why we live here. We love the water. We're surrounded by water. We drink the water. We bathe in the water. It ultimately it gets into our drinking water. It's our most important resource. So we can't play politics with our water. So that to me is very troubling, right? As a pediatrician, I go into an exam room and I don't know what their political party is, right? Nor do I care. I just want to be an advocate for that child and for that family. And that's how I would operate in the legislature. That's just how my brain works with all the advocacy work that I've done over the better part of the last decade. It's all about helping children and families and our community members. It's not about power. Being a legislator is the ultimate, position of advocacy, right? And it's not about holding on to power. It shouldn't be anyway. So that to me was the worst side of politics that took place. And the whole issue is very up in the air now. No one's quite sure how or where or when this funding is going to come from, if it's going to come. And meanwhile, with every day that this doesn't get done, our waters are getting more and more polluted with toxins, and the problem's only going to get worse. It's not going away. And they literally squandered a very time-sensitive, unique opportunity to affordably address our most pressing environmental issue locally.
Yeah, and it's so unfortunate because this is a very fundamental issue which benefits people on all sides of all aisles.
Right.
No particular community or people, but this particular issue and with those septic tanks and with the sewage, we need that not just for water, but for another issue which is equally pressing for Suffolk County, and that is affordable housing.
Exactly.
They can build those houses which they are thinking, unless these septic tanks, this sewage is taken care of. Isn't that right?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said, a lot of advocates talk about building more multiple apartment housings on the island,
Right.
affordable housing, which is actually required. We're seeing that youngsters are not buying houses here because they can't afford,
Right.
and children as they grow up on the island, they tend to leave the town because they
Right.
can't afford.
Right.
So if when and if somebody is thought about bringing affordable housing on the island, I don't know how much taxes they can reduce, but if they
Mhm.
want to build apartments at particular areas which not necessarily affect the character of the town, but particular chosen areas, still that sewage system, that sewer system, those septic tanks need to be built. I
Right.
think this is very fundamental for both our most fundamental pressing issues,
Yeah.
water and affordable housing. Isn't that
Exactly.
correct?
Exactly. Just because this project could have funded that as well and would have eased the pain of the burden of the financial aspect of it on people who want to live here. And it's not sustainable. We need affordable housing for our young professionals. Like as a pediatrician, right? Like I can't find psychologists and social workers and physical therapists that my patients need because we don't have enough of them because they can't afford to live here. My own daughter wants to be an early childhood educator and she has no hopes of being able to afford to live here. No one's going to move here. A, if we can't go in the water, but B, if they can't afford it, right? They're going to go to North Carolina and Florida, like so many families have. They're not
Hmm.
going to settle here. So we really need to incentivize our young professionals to be able to come here and move here and, create innovative jobs and create housing that they can actually afford. I listened to the plan that Dave Colon has, who's running for the Suffolk County Executive, and he has a lot of great ideas for using, unused industrialized spaces that have closed since COVID that aren't being used for using county-owned spaces. He rightly points out that the county is actually the largest owner of land in the county. And if we can use that land to actually build on, particularly near our universities, where young families might tend to want to settle. So there's so much we can do, but it must be done. We really do need to make the county more affordable for people. Taxes are very high, and it's just prohibitive for our young families to settle in. And that needs to be done. It's not sustainable as a county if we don't have young professionals moving forward, workers, people that we need to be here. We can't function, right? We're not going to grow. You always want your community to grow and to thrive and to attract more people because it's such a wonderful place to live. And right now, we're not headed in the right direction, and we need to change that.
Absolutely, absolutely. For any economic activity or any progress, I think housing is a fundamental issue here as anywhere else. Another issue that people are concerned with is safety. Do you think there's been a deterioration in safety standards or the state of safety that we're seeing in New York
Right, right.
and in Suffolk?
Well, as far as Suffolk County, the rate of violent crime is actually down, which I find very reassuring. I know that petty crime is up, and we have to kind of root out the causes of that, and we definitely have to give our law enforcement the resources they need, to be able to keep us safe and to, see how to decrease those numbers. I think a lot of it is mental health as well, which is another issue that I'm really emphasizing in my campaign. Because poor mental health can lead to crime, right? Just people who aren't being cared for, might turn to crime or might turn to drugs and might
Uh, if we're running out of time here, and It's been a pleasure talking to you. You know, I am sure my all of viewers are so excited about your candidatures. They are excited to meet you. They know you in this town. I believe you were awarded the Women of Distinction in 2018. Is that right?
I was actually that was for the work I did with the Long Island Inclusive Communities Against Hate, trying to bring people together against hate.
Okay, okay. Uh, Eve, in the end, I would like to I would like you to put in your own words, why do you think you are the best candidate for the position that you're seeking?
I think I bring an authentic voice to the legislature. I'm not your typical politician, and I just bring, a legitimacy, just as someone who's in it for the right reason, someone who really wants to help people. That's what I've done my whole life. I've just tried to help my patients, help the community, through education, through guidance, through the healthcare, through advocacy work, and I think I just bring a fresh, authentic voice to the legislature, and one of science and health and well-being that we don't have right now, that I think we could really use in the legislature. So that's why I'm running.
Yeah, we definitely need people with diverse backgrounds, and we need people who have a history, a track record of service. And when a doctor wants to serve, what else can be their motive than to serve? Thank you so much for your service, Eve, and all the very best for your campaign.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for taking on the time today. AC ਸਾਡਾ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ The Way Forward।